My aunt and uncle are fueling my jealousy against me and my cousin. And you know what? I am not going to stand for it. I'm putting my foot down, and I'm going to tell the entire family at a family gathering exactly what I think about them. Oh, and they do not like it.
My name is James, the prodigy child of my family. I've always been the top of my class, captain of the debate team, and elected class delegate each year. I lived in a small town in a comfortable house with my parents, who showered me with unconditional love and supported me in all my endeavors. Home life was peaceful. We had family dinners, watched movies together on weekends, had barbecues in our backyard during the summer. My parents would often tell me stories about their youth, their challenges, and their triumphs. These stories were like life lessons to me, and I always admired their perseverance. Apart from my parents, another person profoundly influenced me, my cousin Alex. We spent our childhood together, sharing the same games, the same laughter, and the same secrets. Alex was more than a cousin to me. He was like a brother. His house was a few blocks away from mine, which made our mutual visits frequent and effortless. While I was a bookworm, Alex had a knack for basketball. He was the star of his high school basketball team. I admired him greatly for his agility and endurance. We supported each other in our respective endeavors, and there was never a sense of competition between us. However, as we approached our teenage years, I began to notice a shift in Alex's attitude towards me. He became distant and less enthusiastic about spending time with me. Every time we were together, I felt a certain tension, as if something was bothering him. There was a discomfort between us that had never existed before. This change left me puzzled and saddened, and I wonder if I had done something to cause this rift between us. However, as we approached adolescence, I started to notice a shift in Alex's attitude towards me. He became distant and less enthusiastic, about spending time with me. Whenever we were together, I felt a certain tension, as if something was bothering him. There was uneasiness between us that never existed before. This change left me absolutely puzzled and saddened. I wondered if I had done something to create this chasm between us. The situation worsened when I began to notice jealousy in his behavior. Each time I got a good grade or succeeded in my extracurriculars, I could sense a certain bitterness in him. It was as if each success I experienced was deepening the divide between us. I was bewildered. I did not understand why Alex, who had always been like a brother to me, had changed so drastically. I didn't know who to talk or how to address the issue. This feeling of confusion and powerlessness intensified over time, creating a tension-filled aura around me. My mind was constantly preoccupied with this question. Why was Alex acting this way towards me? Well, despite the growing tension between Alex and me, I could not find the courage to talk to him about it. It was then I decided to seek a little bit of help. I turned to Emily, our mutual friend and longtime confidant. I always appreciated her wisdom and honesty, and I knew that she could help me navigate this maze of feelings. One evening after school, Emily and I met at our usual coffee shop, and I described the situation, detailing each incident and expressing my anxiety and confusion. Emily listened attentively, a serious expression on her face. After a long contemplation, she began to speak. She told me about a conversation she had with Alex a few weeks ago. He had expressed his frustration and resentment towards me, and he felt constantly compared to me, and he's tired of failing to meet these certain expectations. Digging deeper, Emily revealed that it was Uncle Richard and Aunt Lily, Alex's parents, who were pushing this comparison. They were constantly highlighting my achievements and insinuating that Alex should be more like me. Emily's confession left me stunned. I've never thought that Alex's rivalry could stem from his own parents. It hurt to realize that our parents, who should have been our biggest supporters, had sown discord between us. The weight of this revelation was overwhelming, but it also provided a certain clarity. I finally understood that the source of Alex's resentment. The realization left me furious and powerless. My respect for Uncle Richard and Aunt Lily was shaken. I was angry at them for manipulating Alex's self-esteem and for creating a divide between us. I realized I had a responsibility towards Alex as a cousin, as a near brother, to rectify this injustice. I decided it was time for me to do something to retaliate. That night, as I walked home, I was filled with determination. I decided to break the silence and reveal Uncle Richard and Aunt Lily's manipulation. I knew it would be a tough battle, but I was ready to fight it for Alex. The upcoming family gathering would be the stage for my confrontation. My heart pounded at the thought of what was to come, but I knew it was the right thing to do. Grandfather Arthur's birthday finale arrived a week later. As always, everyone was there, gathered in Grandpa and Grandma's large dining room. Laughter and cheerful chatter filled the air, but I was anxious. I had decided this was the perfect time to reveal the truth. Looking at Uncle Richard and Aunt Lily, I felt a knot form in my stomach, but when I met Alex's gaze, I knew I had to go ahead. And I quote, "After the birthday cake and the songs, I asked for silence, stating that I had something important to say. The conversation gradually died down and all eyes turned to me. I took a deep breath and started to speak. I unveiled Alex's silent struggle, how Uncle Richard and Aunt Lily constantly compared him to me, thus fueling his jealousy and resentment. A shocked silence followed my words. I saw many incredulous looks turn towards Uncle Richard and Aunt Lily. I saw Alex looking at me with wide eyes, surprised but also relieved. This was the moment of truth, and even though my heart was pounding, I was convinced that I had done the right thing. After my speech, a deafening silence fell over the room. Alex was looking at me with eyes of an enraged beast. Aunt Lily, known for her outspokenness, was the first to break the silence, and I quote you, "James, you are completely off base. Alex is our son. Why would we push him to be jealous of you?" Her voice was firm, trying to regain control of the situation. Uncle Richard chimed in, a forced smile on his face.
You're mistaken, James. We've never compared Alex to you. We simply want him to be the best he can be.
I shook my head. What you say and what you do are two different things. You don't see how your words affect Alex. You're pushing him to his limit. Well, I was surprised by my own passion and conviction. Unsurprisingly, my uncle and aunt began to vehemently deny my claims, reiterating their innocence and confusion about the current situation. Their attitude reinforced my belief that they were refusing just to accept the truth and take responsibility for their actions. Despite their denial, the tension was palpable in the room. Their faces were tense, betraying their surprise and irritation at my accusations. They were used to being respected and listened to, and this open challenge to their authority was not something they were, accustomed to handling. As the conflict escalation became more intense, I could feel the effect of my words on the family members. Some were shocked, others seemed embarrassed, but the majority seemed concerned. Despite everything, I knew I had to continue fighting for the truth, not only for myself but also for Alex. My confrontation with my uncle and aunt took more energy and courage than I ever could have imagined. However, I was determined not to back down. If I did not break this silence, who would? "James is right," said Mary Ann, the oldest daughter of my Uncle George. Her voice was trembling with emotion and the words pressing in her throat. "Aunt Lily and Uncle Richard, you've never stopped comparing us to all of us." Well, Mary Ann drew a deep breath, memories of past years reflecting in her eyes, and "When I failed my driving test, you laughed in my face, saying that neither of you would ever make such a mistake. You made a spectacle of me defeating in front of my whole family, stating that I was less than you." I could sense a shadow of pain crossing her face, but she remained upright, determined to make her voice heard. "I was just a teenager at the time, and you made me feel worse. You made me feel worthless." Well, to my great surprise, my outburst had given courage to other family members who had remained silent all this time. After a silent pause, Uncle George stood up and his face grave. "And let's not forget how you criticized my decisions to change careers, Richard. You told me I must be crazy, that I was putting my family at risk, and that I should be more like you. You planted doubt in my mind and made me feel inadequate, but I'm happy with my choices and so is my family." Then Aunt Elise spoke up, tears in her eyes. "Lily, you've never stopped criticizing me about my weight. You compared me to my mother, saying she was thin, more beautiful. You even made derogatory remarks about my dress on my wedding day, the most special day of my life, the day I was supposed to feel the most beautiful. You made me feel worthless, unworthy, and ugly." Every revealed story was a stab, tearing the veil of the family harmony to reveal the ugliness beneath. Richard and Lily's antagonism, their insistent comparison, and their manipulative behavior were now exposed to all, adding to the drama of the situation. The whisper of the conversations died out, replaced by a heavy silence at the truth. Well, it unfolded before us. A shocked silence filled the room as the words of Mary Ann, George, and Elise hung in the air. Nobody moved, until Richard suddenly rose, knocking his chair back with a metallic squeak that seemed to tear the palpable tension. His eyes swept the assembly, a mixture of anger and indignation etched in his face.
So that's it,"
he said with a bitter laugh.
Ugh, this is what you all think of us, huh? Well, I'll tell you this. We never intended to harm anyone. We simply wanted the best for our son."
Lily, at his side, looked at him with an expression of surprise. Her lips parted as if to protest, but no sound came out. Alex, silent and still throughout the confrontation, slowly stood up. His face was ashen, and his eyes betrayed a mix of shock, confusion, sadness. He looked around him, then followed his parents out without saying a word. "I'm sorry, Grandfather Arthur," Richard muttered as he passed by him, lips pursed. And with those words they left the room, leaving behind a deafening silence and family in a shock. Their departure was the perfect embodiment of the tension that had just unfolded. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. I hope you're enjoying your day. So, today's story does have a few updates to hop into, and man, what a family feud we find ourselves in. Okay, 3 updates. Guys, if you're not subscribed to the channel, take a second right now and click that subscribe button. It deeply supports me, and I really appreciate that. Here is update number 1. Hey guys, it's been a week since I last posted my story, and I have a shocking update for you. After the tense family meeting, we drove back home, my parents and me, and the atmosphere in the car was heavy with silence. Each of us lost in our own thoughts. I was still troubled by the day's events and the growing animosity between Alex and me. Once, at home, I felt a heavy presence that did not match the unusual atmosphere. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. I opened it, and to my utter surprise, there was Alex standing right in front of me, his face bloody. It was clear that something serious happened, so I said, "Alex, what are you doing here?" I asked, a mix of confusion and concern with my voice. He lowered his head, hesitating to answer, and says, "James, I've been kicked out of my home. My parents, they're furious with me because of the family meeting." My confusion quickly turned into indignation. How could his parents act like this toward their own son? I immediately felt called to act to understand the truth behind the situation, so I said, "Alex, come in," indicating him to come inside. I immediately called my parents, who were completely stunned by what they were seeing. Were Richard and Lily capable of doing such a thing to their own son? The situation was evidently more serious than we first thought, and my father just immediately grabbed his coat and rushed to the hospital, as he was shivering heavily from walking for nearly half an hour on a cold night. During all this time, I could not help but think, did I do right by exposing Alex's parents' behavior in front of the whole family? Did Richard and Lily do this just to make me pay for speaking up? Will Alex forgive me for what I've done? Once back home, we settled in with my parents and Alex in the living room, and I said, "All right, tell us what happened." And Alex recounted in detail the events that had unfolded after the family meeting. He told us everything. After the exhausting family meeting, Alex went home, hoping to find some comfort from his parents, but unfortunately what he, experienced that night was far from what he ever expected. No sooner had he crossed the threshold than Richard and Lily started verbally attacking him. Their words were harsh, their words were cruel, filled with anger and resentment, and they blamed Alex for the confrontation at the meeting and for humiliating the family. Their behavior quickly degenerated into an explosion of rage. Without any restraint, they started yelling, hurling insults and throwing objects around the room. That's when Richard slapped him hard and kicked him out of the house in the middle of the dark night. Terror and shock overcame Alex as he found himself trapped in a hostile environment. He struggled to understand how his own parents could inflict such emotional and physical violence on him. The house he once considered a haven of peace had become a true nightmare. Anger began to bubble up in me, but I took a deep breath to stay calm and support Alex. "I'm truly sorry for what you've been through, Alex. It's all my fault. I should have never spoken out in front of everybody," I said with empathy. And he said, "Oh, I've been blinded for too long by these two trash. You freed me from their grip. Everything's clear now in my mind. That's worth 2 broken ribs and a facial scar." With a determined air, I said, "Alex, I'm here for you, and we will get through this together. Your parents have acted unacceptably, and we'll need to do something for it to change." That's the moment Alex looked at me with a mix of relief and vulnerability in his gaze. He had found refuge at my house, seeking support and understanding in this dark period of his life. Well, of our lives. I realized how much he needed our family, our love, and our solidarity. With determination, I decided that we would not let this situation continue. We discussed with my parents our options, the best way to confront Richard and Lily and show them the consequences of their actions. I was determined to expose the truth and support Alex no matter what. The psychological suffering he had endured over the past years and the violence he had suffered the night could not go unpunished. Update number 2. When my parents, Alex, and I made the decision to contact Child Protective Services, we knew it was a crucial step to ensure Alex's safety and well-being. We were determined to confront Richard and Lily, the perpetrators of the abuse, and hold them fully accountable for their actions. We quickly got in touch with social workers who were attentive and understanding. They listened carefully to our story and examined the evidence that we gathered, understanding the seriousness of the situation and the physical and emotional consequences it had on Alex. The social workers decided to launch a thorough investigation just to protect Alex and assess the severity of the abuse. It emerged that Alex had experienced various forms of psychological mistreatment from his father. These abuses included constant insults, public humiliation, and emotional manipulation aimed at controlling and demeaning Alex. These traumatic experiences deeply impacted his self-esteem and confidence. In the following weeks, we fully cooperated with him, providing all the necessary information and evidence to support our allegations. Meanwhile, Alex was placed in a safe environment and received psychological support to help him heal his emotional wounds. The legal process was long and sometimes exhausting, but we held on to the hope that justice would be served. Finally, the day of judgment arrived, filled with tension and emotion, and the court reviewed the overwhelming of evidence, heard testimonies from family members, including myself, and highlighted Richard and Lily's abusive behavior and neglect as parents. After careful deliberation, the court makes a decision in favor of protecting Alex. Richard and Lily lost custody of their son and faced legal proceedings for abuse and neglect. Finally, they had to face the consequences of their destructive actions. This outcome was a relief for all of us, but I still felt a burning anger inside me. I was determined for Richard and Lily to understand the extent of the suffering they inflicted on Alex and our family. That's when I devised a thoughtful plan of retaliation, aiming to make the judgment public and expose the truth to a wider audience. I contacted a local newspaper and provided them with all the necessary details about the case. I explained Alex's story, the abuse he endured, and I just wanted the public to be informed about the gravity of the situation and for justice to be served not only in the courtroom, but also at the court of public opinion. The newspaper published a detailed article about the case, shedding light on Richard and Lily's actions and the court's decision. The article had a significant impact, drawing attention and outrage from the public. Many people expressed their support for Alex and our family, condemning the abuse and calling for stricter measures to protect children who are victims of maltreatment. However, my plan took an unexpected turn. Among the readers of the article, a former friend of Richard and Lily came forward. He had lost contact with them for a long time, but when he learned about the atrocities committed by this couple, he was shocked and felt the need to do something. This friend turned out to be a lawyer specializing in children's rights. He immediately offered to represent our family in legal proceedings against Richard and Lily, offering his skills, expertise to achieve full justices, and this unexpected turn of events filled us with hope and gratitude. The alliance with this experienced lawyer strengthened our position in the fight against Richard and Lily, and we felt supported and encouraged in our quest for justice. Vengeance took a different turn. Instead of seeking direct retribution, we put all our efforts into obtaining a fair and meaningful conviction. With the help of our new ally, we were determined to use the legal system to ensure that Richard and Lily were held accountable for their actions and to protect other children from such atrocities. Update number 3. This is the final update. The legal process that followed the court's decision was grueling, but ultimately Richard and Lily had to face the consequences of their destructive actions. The overwhelming evidence and compelling testimonies led to their conviction for abuse and neglect towards Alex. Unable to bear the public humiliation and the repercussions of his actions, Richard fell into deep distress. Instead of reflecting on his wrongdoing or seeking redemption, he made a tragic and irreversible decision. He took his own life. The news was shocking to all of us, despite the reprehensible acts he committed. As for Lily, she attempted to evade responsibility by choosing to flee the state without notifying anyone. Her actions only reinforced our belief that she did not deserve custody of Alex. We promptly informed the authorities of her disappearance, but despite the search effort, she remained untraceable. In these tragic circumstances, my parents, Logan and Elise, made a life-changing decision that would impact all of us. They decided to adopt Alex. Although it involved significant adjustment in our family, we knew it was the best thing to do, just to ensure Alex's happiness and well-being. We initiated the legal process for adoption, providing all the necessary documents and meeting all the requirements. During this period, Alex stayed with us, gradually integrating into our family, and we did everything in our power to provide him with a loving, warm, and secure environment where he would finally feel at home. Social workers and professionals involved in the adoption process evaluated our home and took into account Alex's own opinion and feelings. They recognized that we were a loving and committed family, ready to offer Alex all the love and support he needed to rebuild his life. After a rigorous and emotionally challenging adoption process, the long-awaited day finally arrived. Alex's adoption was officially approved by the court. We were all filled with joy and happiness as we welcomed Alex as our full-fledged family member. Today, Alex is a loved and respected member of our family. He's found his place and built strong bonds with each of us. We're grateful just to have provided him with a loving home to help him heal.
Alright guys, I want to share with you the number 1 comment on this story, and then we'll discuss it down below in the comment section. It's in support of OP, and it says this. Well, I can definitely empathize with your situation and the immense stress you must have felt trying to resolve the issue. Well, James, you care about your cousin Alex deeply, and it's understandable that you want to rectify any perceived wrongdoings to him. However, you might not be entirely right here. You see, while your intentions were noble, it seems like you may have overstepped just a bit. The information you received was second-hand from Emily, and confronting your uncle and aunt publicly without first speaking privately could be seen as a little disrespectful, you know. Families are complicated, and every person has their own perspective and motivations. maybe there could have been a better way to handle this, such as having a private conversation with Alex first, or, hey, maybe even having a sit-down discussion with Uncle Richard and Aunt Lily instead of blindsiding them during a family gathering. That could have been as quite confrontational and potentially escalating the situation unnecessarily. So, with that little bit of information from the top comment of the post, what do you guys think of it? And what exactly would you do different if you were in OP's shoes? Guys, thank you so much for joining me on today's story. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more daily videos, smash that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one. See ya!